Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a big myth that keeps a lot of coaches and consultants stuck. It's this idea that if you just get clearer on your passion or your purpose, that the clients will come. Spoiler alert, they will not. So, welcome to the Champions podcast. I'm Riley. This is Ped. And together, we've spent over 30 years and $100,000 of our own money building our coaching and consulting businesses. So, hopefully, this show can help you build your business with less time and less resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this topic is really personal for both of us. I know that I spent years thinking that my broad expertise and experience would really speak for itself, but really it just turns out that being really good at what you do is not enough. And for me, that was a hard pill to swallow. You've actually got to know what your clients actually want.
Yeah, wants, which is not the same as need. We'll maybe circle back to that. But in this episode, we're talking about what happens when you stop leading with your passion and start listening instead. So we're going to share the hard lessons we learned and the $63,000 shift that I made. Talk about that in a second. And a simple mindset flip that will just change everything about this conversation. So let's dig in and talk about the problem first. So I want to actually kick off with a very short story here. When I was first starting my business, I don't even know if you've heard this story before, Ped. It was my first business, which was sports psychology. I was working as a mental performance coach. I had just earned my master's degree in athletic counseling. So clinical psychology, counseling base, mental performance kind of added on top, and hundreds of hours in practice. Wanted to start a business, jumped into it, and I landed a meeting with the director for the Center for Student Athlete Enhancements and Excellence. I think it's the for something like that. Anyway, of a Division I college that was nearby. So it was essentially my dream client. It was the key decision maker for exactly the type of work that I wanted to do. The audience I was looking to work with, it like fit perfectly. I went in with this like big plan that I dreamed up. This like I called it the Progress Program. It was this fancy acronym, and every letter stood for something. And I had,
Love it. We love an acronym.
Yeah, exactly. So I had like, oh, here's all the objectives and all the things, and like, here's the price for the whole program. Like, I'd like outlined everything. And I went in, sat down, we had a nice chat, and long story short, she did not buy. I was, fortunately, we did connect on the passion piece. So it's not that it's a complete, like you just throw it out completely. Because that does matter. The charisma, the like excitement, the energy, the why, definitely part of the conversation. But I took that, translated into what I thought was important, tried to sell that, and it just brick wall. It was like, nope. So instead, fortunately, what happened months later, which said, hey, actually, like we are looking for XYZ, and it maybe is like a one-day thing, like a workshop. And long story short, that's how I got my first gig in my first business. But I was lucky to have the second chance to listen instead of just going in trying to pitch what I thought they needed. And does that make sense?
Yeah, as you're saying that, I haven't heard that story before, so thank you for sharing it. I was thinking about the same with me earlier on in my career as a self-employed consultant in the learning and development space. Like the enthusiasm was my modus operandi, and I think I got away with it for quite some time with some of my early gigs as well. But what that enthusiasm really meant for me was I was just trying to do too many things for too many different people. So I know that I've shared in previous podcasts where my business development strategy was opportunism. And part of that was, here's what I like to do. And I'd go and like talk to people about it. And the right person will get it. Well, that's the thing about being enthusiastic. It's part of the spectrum of clients. Some people will be problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, and all that kind of marketing stages. So what I maybe just got lucky with was the people that were up for working with me were more in the solution aware thing. So if I was talking about values workshops for apprentices on a corporate scheme, that particular further education institution got it. They're like, yes, we need values based on young apprentices. whatever that might be. And but even though I got these early gigs and felt like I was on a roll, it was a very bumpy roll. That variety didn't necessarily lead to that momentum of the snowball going down a a hill,
Yeah, building
grabbing more, building more momentum and having a bigger kind of snowball. It was more like a bit of a ball rolling along the floor, hitting a bit of a a little gap, and then just getting
exactly.
stuck there, and then you have to
Yeah.
like retrieve it and like roll it again.
I mean, the reality is that in any business and anyone that you talk to, whatever the niche or industry or whatever is, there's going to be 10% of people that are just going to buy no matter what. Like
Right.
they're
Yeah.
solution aware. They're like, whatever you have, I'm buying it. They're already sold essentially. And there's also going to be 10% of people who the exact opposite is true. Does not matter what you say. They are just not going to budge. They're not going to buy. Uh, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But really what we're talking about is the middle 80%. That's where where the magic happens. And I think a lot of people hear the success stories of like, oh, this is what I did and it went really well for me. And it's like that was going to happen no matter what you did. That's not really what we want to look at. We want to look at that middle 80% who's on the fence, figuratively speaking. And depending on what you do, listen, respond, proposal, like, the business, that's how they're going to make their decision of whether or not they're going to move forward with you or not. And so like the key shift here, I think we both are kind of referring to is the difference between like using a megaphone versus a mirror. Using a megaphone amplifies and it feels good, right? Like you're really passionate about something. You put a megaphone on, you're shouting it out to the world. You're like, this is my purpose. I'm so excited. And you oftentimes just kind of blow the people's eardrums out. Like you're going in shouting at them in a very nice and enthusiastic way, but nonetheless, you're not listening. And the mirror is really like, that's what sells because people, it's the same thing. People want to hear, like, put yourself in their shoes. They're passionate about something. They're trying to get something done. And that's really what your business is for. It's for them. It's not really for you.
No, and this is the crux of it really, because when you then put a mirror in front of your client and say, "Hey, is this what you want?" They go, "How did you know?" It's like I asked you some.
You told me.
You told me.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, I used to call that, I originally learned it as person-centered therapy, which is really just making it all about the client. And essentially, I mean, it's just being client first or client centric, right? Like that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah, for me, it was when I came across design thinking in 2012, and it was a human-centered approach to solving complex problems. But it was the weird thing for me, and I think I see it in a lot of people as well, is we think about that for the end user, the beneficiary, but we don't, at least I certainly didn't apply the same human-centered approach to thinking about the client in question, where I want to do this human-centered stuff with for their people, whether it's internal people or it's products and services that they sell.
There could be some few extra steps for thinking here. So let's okay. So we've identified the problem here, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not about you, it's about them. It's kind of like the simplest way I can put it. So it's not just blindly following your passion. Yeah, it's a great starting point, but it gives you a sense of direction. But then you need a little bit more than that. So I really want to unpack this and kind of get into the why behind it. So if someone's watching or listening to this, they can understand, okay, I can see that problem, but how do I know like what's actually fueling it or feeding into it? Or how did I get there in the first place so that we can maybe like
Yeah.
avoid falling into that trap in the future, or just bring more awareness to it. Can you share like build on what you were just like in terms of your own personal and professional development, build the why behind?
Yeah, absolutely. We come across a lot of great coaches that have also fallen into the same trap that I fell into, which is to over-index on professional development. and magically thinking that that would automatically translate to sales.
Mhm.
And I remember one particular gig that I the sort of proposal that I won, which was for £32,000. And I remember immediately after winning that, I was like, I know what I'm going to spend my profits on, my next qualification. And that was I was in 2017. And it's such a weird thing to think about that looking back on it now, because clearly what I had already in place then had got me to the point of being able to get more sales. And I still had this faulty belief that I still needed more professional development. And really, I didn't. I could have either just cashed in on that, bought, bought my next fancy bicycle, or
Yeah, or
invested in my business.
in a different way.
Yeah.
What's interesting hearing you say that is, so for me, I had gotten my master's degree. I was in school with forever. And after 6 years of higher education, and it could have been more, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to park that there. I thought that that was enough. So in my head, I was like, I don't need more education. I know that people are building
Mhm.
businesses without it, without more certifications or, licensees, whatever, credentials. And yet I was still leaning on that, hanging my hat on my master's degree, or, that sticking that shingle out there saying like, oh, that's what's going to prove to this
Mm.
person, I know what I'm talking about. You should listen to me and I can solve your problems. And so almost from like different belief systems or angles, I feel like we arrived at the same place. And of course, years later, we're working together, but um, it's that idea that like that expertise is going to carry you forward, when it's really, that's expertise to develop like your skill sets so that you can solve the problem. But what problem are you solving? And that has much more to do about the client. So really these beliefs, and maybe we can shift into that, like, because we've heard it, countless different ways, but like one of them I'd written down here was that idea of like, if I just get really clear on my passion, the right clients are going to find me, which is really similar to that, like, build it and they will come kind of attitude.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know that feeling for sure. And I suppose another one that we've jotted down that's worth mentioning is that being good at what you do should be enough to attract clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not gonna hold the tangent on that, but because you can you can earn lots of credentials and degrees and or whatever the craft is, and that doesn't mean you're good at it. Like you can there's that old saying. What's that saying? That's what do you call a doctor, or what do you yeah, what do you call someone who goes through medical school like but is like a C student or something like that? Have you heard that before?
No.
No, it's doctor. It doesn't matter if they're an A student or a C student, as long as they get through medical school, doctor. So you can be like a shit doctor, you're still a doctor. So the credential alone, it's like, it's just a starting point, really. And you don't need to keep adding more and more and more. It's really, of course, there's nuance and everything, but that's separate from the skill set, being good at what you do. And that is, I think personally, by far more important. But even still, that's a faulty belief that that is enough on its own. Because being good at what you do does not mean that clients are going to find you, that they're going to be knocking down your door,
Yeah.
and it starts to turn into the build it and they will come attitude.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? It's also wrapped up in this notion of feeling uncomfortable just talking about what you do for clients.
Mm,
And this feeds into then the next fault belief, which is sharing your journey, sharing your passion, talking about what you're learning, your kind of coaching uh, s- tool or your facilitation technique or whatever it is that you're passionate about on the day. And I know that when when I've spoken to some coaches and consultants, they've said, "Well, I post on LinkedIn, and the problem is that it's just other coaches and consultants that are replying back to me, and so it's that there's this faulty belief that you're still trying to do marketing, but you're marketing to the wrong person."
yeah. Well, let's dissect that for a second, because I think that's worth talking about. So overarching problem of like the bill that they will come, it's about them, not you, right? And so then we think like, oh, I need to get more visible. I need to get in front of
Yeah.
the, so I'm going to post more about me. It's you, or there's the oversharing and like the vulnerability vomiting onto LinkedIn or whatever your platform of choice is. And I think that's so interesting. We are talking about this just before we hit record here, that the coaches who are posting and complain about getting only really engagement from other coaches, that's not evidence of marketing not working. That's
Mm.
evidence of your marketing working for the wrong people. It's just, it's about, if marketing is about speaking to the problems of your ideal client or avatar, then when you're talking about your problems as a coach, who are you speaking to? You're speaking to other
Other
coaches.
coaches. Yeah.
That's who's going to engage with your content. So again, you're making it about yourself instead of making it about who do you actually want to work with. Let's talk about their problems.
Yeah.
You-
And the problem then, sorry to interrupt you there, Riley, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, when we're not being client centric, or even when we haven't spoken to enough clients to really understand what their problems are, when we do go out to then paint a picture of what we can do for others, we end up becoming very vague in terms of what we can help people do. So it becomes this communication skills for managers. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not sure what that's going to do for who exactly, what kind of managers, where are they going to get out of it? It becomes very vague. And recently I was having a DM conversation with someone who attended a webinar that I was invited to to host. And they sent me a link to their product page for a workshop that they run. I said, I'm struggling to sell this. And this is for you if you are a this. It's like these 5 different types of avatar that could come to this workshop around. I can't remember exactly what it was about it, but I was thinking, well, they're not. They're going to see the list of all these other people that they don't relate to and go, this is clearly not for any of us because how am I like this other person?
Yeah. Yeah. The irony in communication skills workshops that are poorly communicated, it's not lost on me, but that gets into like offer creation, offer development, and messaging and the specificity there. So that's a whole nother, I think. But what we're starting to talk about is like some of the shifts that need to be made. So I want to share like potential solutions. If you're watching, like if you're hearing this, this is a problem for you. You're like, oh, I've believed some of those things. It's fueling this problem for me. Here's some of the things you can change. And I mentioned at the beginning of the episode a $63,000 shift that I made. So let me unpack that. So I was building a sports psychology business. My first full year in business, I made $7,000. I made more money working part time in a restaurant to pay my way through school as a student. You know, like I was really like, is this for me? I don't know if this is worth it. And I'm sure there's lots of other entrepreneurs that have had those thoughts, even if it's on the side of a, you know, they start later in life, but side of a full-time job, they have family, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. I was starting in my 20s, fresh out of school, and I wanted to make go at it. I stumbled into, and I've told this story before, you know, I saw this TED talk and I reached out to the guy, but to zero in on this, the conversation, when we finally had a meeting, because I'm not really talking about how to get the meeting. I'm assuming you already have a meeting. What I did was ask, like, what are your problems? Like, what are you focused on? What are you trying to accomplish? I was just better trying to understand his business and like his context. I wanted to absorb it all. And that little shift, I didn't know it at the time, but that little shift in just my thinking of kind of almost checking my ego and just leaning into curiosity, that actually sold better than anything else. I try all the cold calls and emails and research, all that like, you know, hustle that I put into my first business that led to $7,000. My first full year in consulting, this was a new business that this turned into. I jumped to $50,000, which in today's dollars is actually, believe it or not, 63,000. I
No
cannot
way.
inflation over the last 6 years or however long that's been, but that's the $63,000 shift, is literally just listening, asking before answering. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's really at the heart of what we call the insider selling mindset, which
Yeah.
is what you're building for your audience, not with them. And, we've been alluding to this the entire way through this episode, but really it's just about talking to people, having that curiosity that you've just been talking about, Riley, just like, what is your problem? And just getting deeply curious about that, how it's affecting them, what they've tried, what they want to achieve if they solve their problems, because you don't have to get them to go and design every single bit of your program, your offer with you. You can do if you want to, but really starting off by asking them what the problems are and then designing a solution that solves their problems because you've asked them. That is really the biggest shift that I know that you've just shared for yourself, but that my aha moment, and I talked about that design thinking piece earlier. That is design thinking. That is what was the mindset shift for me, which was, oh, I already can get this. I tell people to do this, and I'm not doing it myself. And it's the biggest unlock.
Yeah, yeah. That, I mean, that gets into like integrity and practicing what you preach and all those like other things that like build that resistance inside, I think, for entrepreneurs. But I really do want to hammer home like that mindset shift of like your business, even if your business is about you. Like even if you have like I don't know, a personal brand, you're an influencer selling a vision, a lifestyle, like unbeknownst to you, that's starting to get circle all the way back full circle to making it about them. But it might be again about you, but it's not for you. The business is for them. You can't have a business without other people and solving their problems. So some like really clear distinctions for takeaways here to like cement this and bring it home for people uh, is a lot of times people talk about branding. It's not about branding. It's about, you need to start asking better questions. So it's not like, I, we don't even really have a brand at the time of recording this, right? Like we've got a name, we have different things and people recognize us and
We got two colors in our color palette.
it's, yeah. And someday that will change and I'm looking forward to it. And hey, if you're watching this, like, and we have a brand at this point, then fantastic. Who knows? At the time of recording, we have not prioritized that because we prioritized getting our hands dirty and asking those better questions, getting in the trenches. We're literally doing it right now. We're doing market research again to try to unpack and like fill in some gaps in our own business. So that's like,
So ditch the clever branding.
yeah,
That's the first thing.
yeah, forget about
Secondly,
that. Ask questions. Secondly, stop selling your expertise, making it about you, and translate those things into the outcomes that your clients care about. Like that's, I don't know if I can say that any clearer.
yeah, this word outcome though can be so elusive as well. And so I would just say outcomes that are tangible, measurable. You know that you've reached a destination because somebody has
In
achieved
result.
something as a result of working with you.
Yes, exactly. And finally, I think in this space, you hear the term visibility a lot. And we talk about it as well. And for sure, like like if no one can see you, that's not going to help either. But to your point earlier, Ped, about the coach who is only getting seen by other coaches, that's not necessarily a visibility issue, is it? You are visible.
Plenty of visible.
It's
Plenty of
just
visible.
not relevant to the correct audience. So and this goes back to the previous point of like, well, what are you actually talking about? So instead of pursuing visibility, pursue relevance and make sure that you're talking about things that actually matter to the right people. Because if chances are it's not even really a visibility issue, it's a relevance issue.
Questions, outcomes, relevance. Brilliant.
Cool. All right. So let's close this up. I'm just looking at our outline, making sure we hit everything here. So I think the key takeaway here is like, just stop trying to be impressive and sell your expertise and your credibility and your credentials and just start trying to be useful and just speaking your client's language. And look, if you're sitting here wondering why things aren't clicking, like maybe it's not actually your skills or expertise. It's more about your messaging and what we're talking about here, like being more of a mirror instead of a megaphone.
Yeah, and you can be more of a mirror by using their words, making sure that you're speaking to their priorities, not just your passion. And here's what I think is the most amazing thing about when that happens. So you'll be able to see the link between what your clients want and what you love to do and make that connection. And that's where, in my opinion, the magic happens. That it's so boring to call it product market fit, but that's what it is.
Ikigai, we could call it.
Ikigai. Let's go. The Ikigai, the product market fit of Ikigai. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, yeah. So if you're watching, listening, and this episode sparks something for you, then hit us up. Let us know what faulty belief you've had. If maybe we didn't hit on something, we'd love to learn from you, or if where you are, what you're still figuring out. Yeah, just we're always open to having a conversation, whether it's in the comments below, in a DM, but you can find us around. If you're
Yeah,
watching or listening, then you know where we are.
exactly. And look, if you're not on our newsletter, we share more stories, frameworks, things that we've learned along the way. So make sure that you subscribe to that and get get the written version of what we do as well as the auditory version this way.
Yeah. So if Yeah. So everything we talked about today is, it all ties back to what we help our clients to do, which is really turning their expertise into offers that people actually want to buy. So if you want help to sell and without selling out or selling yourself short, then you can also get in touch for that.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
Bye.